¿Qué tal, comunidad? Aquí habla su abogado Ray Ybarra Maldonado. I've been asked by folks to put together a video, Know Your Rights. So what we're going to do today, we're going to tell you about your rights via law enforcement. If you're at a protest, driving a car, if you're at your home, if you are considering going to the protest, or if you want to know what your rights are in any of these situations, do me a huge favor. Give me a like and share this video so other folks can learn about it as well. We're going to get right into it. Know your rights. This is a very timely video with everything going on in the world. You definitely want to know what your rights are via the police department. Anything that's not covered in this video, leave a question down below and we'll do the whole nother video on it or answer it directly if it's quick to answer. Here we go. Number one, your rights in your home. Your home is your castle. There is no place where you have greater rights than in your own home. If law enforcement comes to your door, you don't have to open it, right? However, if they have an arrest warrant or if they have a warrant to search the house, they're probably going to come in with force if you don't answer. So what I would suggest is to go to the door, don't open the door, but through the door say, do you have a warrant? And if they do have a warrant, ask them to show it to you. Slide it under the door, go to the window, put it in the window. You want to make sure that that warrant is signed by a judge. Because if it's ICE at the door, they might say, yes, we have a warrant, where they do have their own civil warrant that was signed by one of their own officers. That does not mandate you open the door and let them in. So you want to make sure it's a warrant signed by a judge. That officer had to go to a judge and say, these are the reasons why I want entry into this house, and the judge signed off on that. If they don't have that, what you should do, tell them to leave. Come back with a warrant. Or don't say anything at all, don't engage anymore. Your rights in your house are at the utmost peak that they are anywhere else. So do not let them in, do not have to identify yourself, do not have to give ID, no warrant, no entry, simple as that. Now, as you leave your castle, as you leave your kingdom of the house, and you venture out into the world, say you're going to a protest. Well, to get to a protest or to get home, what do you have to do? You have to drive, right? So your rights when driving are less than when they're in your house. Why is that? Because in the state of Arizona, if you agree for a driver's license, you essentially are saying, I'll take my driver's license and I'll promise that if I'm ever pulled over driving, I will give that to you or some other form of identification. Let's go ahead and get these statutes up. These are very important statutes that you must learn and you must know. Let me get this out of the way here. So this one is ARS 281595, failure to stop or provide license. Don't worry about A, it just basically says if you're driving, pull over if they get the lights on you. B, the operator of a motor vehicle who refuses to exhibit the license as required or who is not licensed and doesn't give some sort of ID is guilty of a Class 2 misdemeanor. So, if you are driving, yes, you must give your ID. Now, what about if you're a passenger in the car? Well, let's go down here. It has subsection C here. A person other than the driver of a motor vehicle who fails or refuses to provide evidence of the identity to a peace officer, where such officer or agent has reasonable cause to believe the person has committed a violation of this title. So what that means in plain language is, if they believe you've committed a crime, if they have reasonable cause to believe that, then you must also give your ID. So any passenger in the vehicle, by default, what does that mean? You don't have to give your ID if they don't have reasonable cause that you committed a crime. But if they do, and you don't give the ID, then it's a Class 2 misdemeanor. Right? So very important to remember that. The other place where you must give your full name, we'll go over the statute since we got them up right now, ARS 132412, is upon arrest, right, or lawfully detained, and based on reasonable suspicion that the person has committed a crime. Refusal to answer, they must tell you your refusal to answer is a crime before they can charge you with this. So what this tells me, and should tell you, is if you're not detained, if they don't have the reasonable suspicion, then you don't have to give your name. But if they do, they have that reasonable suspicion, then that's where you would have to give your name if you're detained and they inform you that failure to answer could be a Class 2 misdemeanor. All right, so very important that we review those two and you know those two very well, because the last thing we want is you to be exercising your right but have a misunderstanding of them. So when you're driving to that protest, if you're pulled over or coming away from it, yes, you have to give the ID. If they have reasonable cause to believe you're involved in a crime, yes, you have to give your ID. If you're detained and they have reasonable cause to commit a crime, yes, you have to give your full name. So what that means to me, how I interpret that is, any other time, you don't have to answer any questions. You're driving, you're pulled over, law enforcement requests your ID, they request this information, you hand it over to them. You don't even have to roll your window all the way down. You can put it half down, you can put it a little bit down, keep your hands visible on the steering wheel, up high. Don't give officers any reason to do any violence to you, not that they actually need any reasons, but you know how they are, and give over your information. The key question to always be asking law enforcement, this is if you're still in the car or if you're at the protest or anywhere else you're at, is am I free to leave? If you learn one thing from this video, please take away this phrase, this question, am I free to leave? If you don't ask that question, the officer can always argue it was a consensual encounter. Even if I pulled him over initially, we continued to talk on our own about something else. He was free to leave if he wanted to. She was free to leave at the protest. We were just talking, and then she told me something, and then I arrested her. Very, very important that you understand that question, am I free to leave, can be a game changer for you, and you should be asking law enforcement at the very beginning of your conversation with them if you are free to leave. If you're a passenger in the vehicle, you can ask, am I free to leave? If they have no reason to suspect you of any crime, you're able to get out of the car and go on your own way, walking wherever you want, while they continue to write the ticket or whatever they're going to do for the person that was driving the car. So am I free to leave? Very, very important question. Now, say they ask you, can I search your vehicle? Your answer should be no, not without a warrant. Officers can search a vehicle in limited incidents. One's after arrest, after a lawful arrest, they can search the car. If they fear for their safety, they can search in the area in which you immediately could grab if they're looking for a firearm or a weapon. If they have probable cause to believe a crime is committed, which is higher than reasonable suspicion, then they can also search the car. And they can search with your consent. So if they don't have the probable cause, if they don't even have reasonable suspicion, you don't have to give consent. Say, go talk to a judge. Get a warrant from the judge to search the car or otherwise develop probable cause to search the car. I'm not going to give you my consent or my permission. If they pull you out of the car or demand you get out of the car and they say, can I search your person? The answer should still be no, you cannot. Now they can conduct what's called a pat-down search to look for any weapons, to look for anything, again, that could do harm to them and pat the outer sides of your clothing, which then could lead to reasonable suspicion, probable cause, if they feel some sort of drug paraphernalia or something in there. But you never want to give the law enforcement that consent to do something that you have the right to say no to. So I always recommend do not give consent to search the vehicle, do not give consent to search yourself. This also goes if you're at the protest and you're not driving and they ask you permission to search you if they believe you did something wrong and they're looking for evidence of a crime. No, most definitely not. So we hope that you get to the protest or you get home safely from that. Now let's review your rights if you're out there at the protest. If you're at a protest, you absolutely fundamentally have the First Amendment right to engage in that activity. There is no right more protected than the right to protest against your government. We're going to be celebrating the 4th of July every year, right? And that's the reason, because they said we're done with this government. We don't like it, so we're going to start a new one. So you going out there and simply protesting a certain issue certainly is within your right to do so. So we want to make sure that you feel comfortable and safe engaging in protest and telling the government about your dissatisfaction. Now, can the government limit your protest? Well, in certain ways they can, right? If you're on a public sidewalk, that's fair game. You don't even need a permit for that. If you're on a public street and you're not blocking traffic, you're also fair game there. If you're on private property and have the owner's consent or your own property, then you're absolutely free to say and do whatever you want. Now, if you're blocking any government buildings or entrance to any private property, they can ask you to move out of the way to allow the flow of traffic in and out of the building, across the sidewalk, across the street, whatever it may be. Larger gatherings, use of megaphones or use of, projected sound, amplified sound, that might need a permit. But as far as you being out there in the public area, you 100% absolutely have the right to do protesting in those traditional public forums. Right? How about your right to video? If you're in a public area and you have your cell phone with you or camera with you, you are 100% in your right to film anything you can see, even law enforcement. You can sit there across from law enforcement all day and put a camera on them and hit record if you so wanted to. Now, if a law enforcement officer is engaging in an arrest, is doing something that they shouldn't be doing, we've seen those incidents many times, they cannot run up to you and take away your camera or order you to stop filming. What they can do is order you to move back or get out of their way, stop obstructing what they're trying to do. And what I used to do is with my camera, would tell them, okay, I'm going to step back 2 steps, and then I would say, is this far enough? If they say no, step back 2 more steps, is this far enough? You have the right to record. They have the right to not be interfered with, right? So you want to make sure that as calmly as you can, you're stepping back and you're saying, am I okay to record here, or am I okay to be here? And if they're being completely irrational and keep saying no and no, but you're further enough away, you're recording. So you're documenting their abuse of power, and that can be used later. So everybody should also understand that they should not give up their cell phone, their camera, whatever it is, without a warrant, again, signed by the judge. Now, if an officer comes up to you and demands it, I would say I'm with my First Amendment right to record, and I do not give you consent to take my whatever it is, cell phone, camera, whatever. But if they insist and they are forcefully taking it away, don't resist. Document, have somebody else record what they're doing so we can use that against them later in a civil lawsuit or in your defense if you're eventually charged with a crime. Very, very important rights that you have when you're at the protest. And I'm not telling you here that I live in la la land. I think the law enforcement is always going to respect this. But it's important for me to convey these to you so you can have that education information and you can exercise your right that might not be vindicated right there in that spot, but somewhere down the line in a lawsuit, in a complaint, might benefit you and harm that person who is violating your rights. Now, if you are arrested for something, very, very important reminder here that your Miranda rights must be given to you prior to any questioning. If they arrest you and they don't ask you any questions, there's no need to read Miranda. Also, if they want to question you without arresting you, they don't need to read Miranda. So, the important thing for you to remember, along with the am I free to leave language, is I want to exercise my right to remain silent. You do not have to answer any questions whatsoever from law enforcement. If they came up to you prior to arresting you or after you've been arrested, you have the right to remain silent and can exercise that right. You also have a right, this one you must unequivocally state, your right to an attorney. If you simply say, do you think I need an attorney? Or maybe I need an attorney, I might need an attorney, but that's not going to work. You have to explicitly state, I want an attorney. I don't want to answer any questions until I get my attorney. Please, please do everything you can to remember these rights that I've explained to you. When you exercise your rights, you give someone like me, an attorney, the opportunity to defend your case either in criminal court or through a civil lawsuit so we can remedy the violation of your rights. It's been my privilege and pleasure to share this information with you. Any questions you have, please drop them below. This is coming just to give you a little bit of context from my experience. Filing motions to suppress, motions to dismiss because of egregious government conduct in district court, federal district courts, litigating through the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, getting victories in these cases, litigating these cases in superior courts across the state of Arizona. Always a pleasure to get a law enforcement, Border Patrol, ICE officer on the stand. Some of them even gotten into tears before. It doesn't show in the transcripts, but I was there, so I can attest to that. When law enforcement violates your rights, we need to stand up and denounce it. For far too long, they thought they're omnipotent, can do whatever they want, nobody's going to exercise their rights or whatever. The more educated, the more informed we are, the more we can push back against this growing problem of police and law office abuse and begin to say we want a more fair and just world and we demand our rights respected. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.